welcome back to New Amsterdam Radio, the podcast for creatives, thinkers, and doers. It is I, the mayor of Flow Boys.
And this happened on the northern island of Oahu, where his name was George London. He was actually a school superintendent, and he had a class of students out there, and they were confronted by a small diminutive band of naked warriors harvesting spears and the like. And that made the newspapers. And I'm not sure why, somebody would try to fabricate a story like that. So you have to kind of accept it at face value. And while I was there, I met no less than two individuals who claimed they had firsthand knowledge that perhaps the Menehune still exists. One was a fellow whose uncle lived on the island of Kauai, and he was hunting wild pig in the Ka'alau Valley and encountered a hostile band of about a half a dozen diminutive warriors that acted in a threatening manner towards him. And I met another fellow who claims that on the island of Maui, on the 7,000 foot elevation mark, he was camping on the Haleakala crater on the west side, and in a tent with his girlfriend at the time. And they were assaulted by naked diminutive warriors that threw stones at them and drove them off. So I thought, oh my God, could they actually be out there? Well, why not? Even though Hawaii is a fabulous island and a tourist attraction, there are remote places where I'm sure that Westerners have not set foot. And so what inspired me was the fact that the Menehune could still exist, and what would happen if two divergent cultures, a modern Western society encounters essentially a Paleolithic tribe, small band of warriors that are still living basically in the Stone Age. And after all, there are still Stone Age tribes that still exist on the planet Earth as we speak, in the Amazon and the Sentinel Island in the Indian Ocean. You can't go there. It is absolutely forbidden to go there because the people that live there are Stone Age cannibals. The people that have gone there to explore and try to make peace with them, they never come back, and they're presumably eaten. So, well, if it's a fact that there are Stone Age societies still on the planet Earth, why not the Menehune? And so that inspired me to write this novella.
Yeah, not to say that being eaten is kind of a funny matter, but you had mentioned Sentinel Island. I was just doing research about that, and I was like, oh my goodness, it's kind of interesting that do exist as it is right now. What I love about that and the Vampiro series and the DNR series is that the research is there. You can definitely tell you spend hours to put things together to make sure it rings true. But talk to me about your process of filtering out things that are good for the story, things you just kind of know for your own knowledge as a writer. How do you make sure you don't bog us down in the research like how some other fiction pieces can do?
That's a good question. To deliver a sense of authenticity and realism, as you said, a lot of research went into all of my works of fiction. It took a lot of background work, and my late co-author on the Vampiro series, Tom Cavaretta, he was astonishing in his ability to dig up folklore with background stories that gave the nidus to us to work on the Vampiro series. And as far as the DNR Trilogy, which you just now touched on, that was my very first trilogy work of fiction. And frankly, that's a very dark story that is based on my own experience as a physician, seeing the darkness and the magnitude of evil that human beings can sometimes demonstrate to each other. The protagonist in the story is a medical student whose life goes off the rails. He becomes dehumanized in medical school by seeing brutality from one human being to another. And he develops an operative theory that perhaps God put his money on the wrong primate, that God backed the wrong monkey. that human beings are basically evil and do not deserve to have souls. And that's sort of a dark take. But he justifies his fundamental belief system by what he has experienced. And during the course of my career, I saw a lot of strange and odd things that were disturbing in the practice of medicine, enough to perhaps garnish a trove of short stories, but nothing that I came across that one could consider a unifying theme. And that changed about a decade ago when I was actually at American Society of Clinical Oncology meeting that was in Florida. And I was in the wrong place at the wrong time. I had entered a conference that was only allowed for non-American attendees, European doctors and the like, because they were offering cold adult beverages and snacks, and that sounded like a good deal. So I wandered in there and was promptly thrown out on my ear since I was an American. And they actually ushered me out the back of the meeting room, not in an attempt not to draw the ire from the DEA or Food and Drug Administration or whoever dictates doctor and pharmaceutical company relationships. And that's when I heard a very disturbing story that I should not have been privy to. And I sat on this for quite some time, and it ate at my brain that I had to put it on paper. What I overheard were two women. One was obviously a mentor, and the other was either a fellow in training, or perhaps somebody who had just completed her hematology oncology training. There were two women, and they were behind a curtain, and they could not see me. And I was literally 2 feet, maybe 3 feet away from them. And I heard a conversation between them that made the hair stand up on the back of my neck. The younger physician had bemoaned the fact that she had been assaulted by some family members. She had actually had the chutzpah, if I may use that Yiddish term, to give bad news to family members that grandma had come down with a terminal cancer. And the family members of this patient took umbrage with this doctor telling the family the truth. And they took her outside and they slapped her around. And I thought, oh my God, that's a horrible story. And the older physician, the mentor, well, I'm assuming was a mentor to this younger person, told a tale that just really was terrifying. She said that violence between physician and patients and their family members is a two-way street. And she told me an event that must have happened somewhere between the year 1980 and 1982 by the terminology that she was using. She told us a tale of a fellow that was in a prison system. I'm assuming down south, I'm assuming possibly Florida, but that's just guesswork on my part by the accents that I heard the two women speak. But the older physician said that during the time that she was a young physician, she knew of an event where house staff members got together and actually killed the patient. The patient was a prisoner consigned to life in prison without parole. He was a serial killer, and he came down with a new illness at the time that she referred to as GRID, gay-related immunodeficiency syndrome. And that was the term that was used for AIDS between 1980 and 1982. In July of 1982, the World Health Organization realized that this was a disease process that was beyond sexual identity and sexual preferences, that it infected not only the homosexual community, but also the heterosexual community. And that's when the term was changed to AIDS, okay? But at the time, between 1980 and 82, we pretty much thought that this was a disease that was isolated only to the gay community. And that's the terminology she used. So that's what gave me the point of reference for what time this might have occurred. Anyhow, the serial killer came down with pneumonia as a consequence to this mysterious